Learning Objective A is about computing frequency and relative frequency, but I'm also going to tuck into here actually making the histogram. So let's just start from scratch. In order to make a histogram, we do have to do the frequency or possibly relative frequency. And the steps to do that are as follows. The first step is you want to organize data into non-overlapping intervals of equal width. Generally, when you do this, you're going to have between 5 to 10 intervals per graph. Step 2, you're going to count the number of observations per interval and record that in a frequency table. So we'll talk about how to make that frequency table. Once you have that, we're going to draw the histogram with intervals on the horizontal axis and the frequency on the vertical axis. And there should be no spacing between the bars. Now, some things to keep in mind and be careful of is when you are making your intervals, intervals that are too large or small makes the data difficult to interpret. So when they said you should have between 5 and 10 intervals, this one breaks it because there's only 2, and this has far more than 10. Just makes it hard to interpret. The other thing they said is intervals should be of equal width, because intervals not of equal width will actually distort the histogram. And it's hard to see the ones that aren't of equal width because you really have to read it carefully. And here's my point. These intervals are about your ages or how years old you are. This first one is from 0 to 4 years old, so we're talking those that are up to 1, 2, 3, and 4 years old. So you have 4 age groups in here. This guy right here from 5 to 17 actually has about 18 different age groups in it. So you're talking 4 age groups versus 18. Those intervals are not the same. The widths of the bars are, but the intervals are not. So this is not a good histogram, and you would scrap it and say start over. Now let me show you how to make a frequency table, and we'll do a relative frequency table also, and then we'll make that a histogram. So here we have the daily temperatures in March in one particular year in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we want to make a frequency table first. So what I want to do is get an idea of trying to make 5 to 10 intervals. So the range of this data, if we look at it, we want to find the smallest and the largest piece of data. It looks like the smallest piece is 27 and the largest is 71. So the range is going to be the 71 minus the 27, which is going to be equal to 44. Now remember, we want to take 44 and to make it into 5 or 10 bins. So what if we count by 4s? Well, if we did that, if you do 44 divided by 4, you're going to get 11 bins, and that's too many bins. So what about 5? So if we do 44 divided by 5, it's going to give us something around 8.9. So this is going to tell us about 9 bins. So let's go ahead and make 9 bins for our histogram. So what should the first bin be? How about 25 up to 29, which will be 5 pieces of data. And then we'll go 30 to 34 is another 5 pieces of data. 35 to 39, then we have 40 to 44, 45 to 49, 50 to 54, and then went all the way up to the last interval of 70 to 74. So then what I'm going to do is I'll call this frequency, and frequency is going to be our counts. So let's just go ahead and count how many pieces of data are in each of these intervals. So this is what I end up getting for the total frequency. And if you tally up how many days there are here, the total count is going to be at 32 days in total. So now this is a frequency table. To do a relative frequency table, that's just going to be the percent of the total. So if there's 32 days in total, then what we're going to have for 25 to 29 is 1 out of 32. And relative frequency can be a fraction or a decimal. So if we complete this, here's what this table will look like. And you have a relative frequency table. Now the last thing is to make the histogram. And let's just make this one a frequency histogram. So I'm going to do counts. The highest count we're going to need is 7, so I'll put the tally marks up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for our counts. We'll just call this frequency. And down here will be our intervals. So we have the various intervals listed. So if we graph this, the first bar is 25 up to 29 is 1. So I would just do this. Then we're going to have from 30 to 34 is going to be 1 also. 35 to 39, we're still at 1. 40 to 45 was going to be up to 7. And the next one is 6.